Welcome to Field Talk, a Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. Join our host, Wallace Curry, as he explores the stories from Monitor Farm networks on how farmers have adapted their businesses with support from specialists and experts to assess farm performance and explore opportunities. Monitor Farm Scotland is farmer-led, farmer-driven, encouraging discussion and solution-based thinking.
Welcome everyone to Field Talk, a Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. This is the first of hopefully many, and the voice you're currently hearing is myself, Wallace Curry. Now, some of you might know me in the farm side of things in Scotland. I've now spent a bit of time in England, but my name's probably cropped up here and there. For the last 4 years, I've been lecturer for Scotland's Rural College in agriculture, so have been involved in many of the future of our sector's years in academia, which was an absolute joy. I currently now work in marketing in agriculture, sort of in an agency at Hills Green down in England in Cheshire. The other sort of things in my life in this world are I'm currently doing an Nuffield scholarship, which is seeing me look into agricultural education and consumer engagement, which has been quite amazing. Been really, really good. On top of that, with Scottish Young Farmers, I'm currently the National Chair of Communications and Marketing. So working alongside a fantastic team of people from digital, paid, conventional media to try and promote both internally and externally, all comms and marketing for SAYFC. And I guess I should probably mention my probably biggest qualifying feature of being here is this is not my first podcast, it must be said. I filmed just over 260 food and farming podcasts on my own brand as well. So I just love speaking to people in the sector, and I'm really looking forward to sort of sharing both what the Monitor Farm is, the Monitor Farm programme is, and then also the brilliant people that are involved throughout it. What better place to start than our programme manager, Beth Alexander. We've got Beth here today. Beth, would you like to say hello?
Hi Wallace, I'm delighted to be along with you, and we're so glad to be launching this new podcast and with you as our host, just someone that's so passionate about the industry.
No, it's a pleasure to be involved in, and yeah, very much looking forward to working with everyone. Beth, we will, as the episode goes, get into what the programme is, how it works, what it can mean for people. But I always like, and I'm quite certain those listening do as well, want to hear about the people that they're hearing currently. So could you give us a wee bit, Beth, just a bit of your background before Monitor Farm Scotland?
So I'm a beef and sheep farmer from Perthshire. So I farm alongside my family, my grandparents, my dad and my brother up on a beef and sheep upland farm just north of Blairgowrie. So my roots are very much in the cattle and sheep sector. We run 650 Limousin commercial cows up there and 1,500 commercial cows as well. So that is my background, my bread and butter, very much been brought up on that. And then from there, I obviously was passionate about agriculture from a very young age. So went on to do a degree in agribusiness management at Newcastle University. So I had a really fun 3 years down in Newcastle, made a lot of friends, a lot of contacts who are now spread right across the country from London all the way through Yorkshire, and me as the lone Scot up here. But I had a lot of fun in Newcastle, and just great to meet so many different people from different backgrounds. And I finished my last exam, I think it was on the 3rd of June 5 years ago, and I joined QMS exactly a week later as a cattle and sheep specialist. So joined QMS then, and worked in the industry development team as a cattle and sheep specialist. And then 2 years ago, there was a new Monitor Farm programme opening, and the job position became available. So that's how I've come to be where I am today.
I like that you know the exact day your last exam was. Were you that keen to finish?
Well, I really enjoyed my last year at uni, actually. I think it was the year that I really settled into it, and I did my dissertation on life after subsidies for suckler cow producers, which is, still hugely topical now because we're still looking at what life might be like after subsidies. I think we thought back then they were going to go a lot quicker than they have up here, and they have done over the border. But yeah, so I really enjoyed my last year, but I've got those dates stuck in my head for whatever reason that might be.
Just out of interest, my undergraduate dissertation, it wasn't titled Life After Subsidies, but it was on that. And I guess Scottish extensive units, be that beef or sheep. So yeah, quite similar actually. Yeah, you sort of come
Mine
into
was
your own when you
titled
focus.
Thrive or Survive. So here's hoping that we'll be thriving.
You've done much better than mine. I think mine was diversification. It was just one of those long-winded ones that was in no way well titled. So you flew through your time at QMS there. Could you just go in a wee bit more depth as to what you've been involved in with QMS?
In my cattle and sheep specialist role, we're really focused on that supply chain end. So we kind of see it as it's a bit like product development you might have in a lot of, commercial companies. Product development, working with farmers to help produce that best end product that we possibly can for our marketing team to then go on and market this fantastic produce that we have of, Scotch beef, Scotch lamb, specially selected pork. So I spent a lot of time with grazing groups and a lot of time in abattoirs running meet the market workshops. And that's all about, getting the end product in specification. I developed a tool to go alongside that, which is called the Meet the Grade tool. So it's like an online tool for kind of lamb cattle grading. So you can try and see at home where the right handling points are, because when you can't always get into an abattoir, they're really difficult. They're busy places, and they've got that line speed that they need to keep up to keep the flow going through them. So it's really hard for farmers to see exactly, make that link between the product on the shelf and how they get that into specification and the demands of the market that they're looking for. So that's why we developed this online tool to try and complement the Meet the Market workshops, which are, smaller groups, 10, 12 people that we take through, and they still go on. It's colleague Leslie that runs them now. So I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I spent three years working on various different projects. There's a whole range. Worked on Ram Compare, which is a sheep genetics project, looking at EBVs and on terminal sires, to help encourage fast lamb growth and optimum carcass quality as well. So a bit of a theme there, working on that, that end product link with farmers.
And just a quick dive away from, I guess, your direct career before we jump onto the monitor farm side of things. Did I see you recently went on as a trustee with RSABI?
Yes, I did. So a trainee trustee, they run an annual program to try and encourage. I suppose it's a little bit like succession on the board and let younger people in to see the operations of a board and of a charity. So there's myself and Karen Stewart that joined RSCBI as trainee trustees in July of this year. So we've got a year's program to go through. So we've been very much jumped straight in at the deep end. We've had two board meetings now. It's a really great board, diverse, different backgrounds of people that bring together, but they've all got this common goal of wanting the best for the industry and very much the people side there, So RSABI supports on the financial, practical, and emotional support. And we're in really challenging times in agriculture. There's a lot of people that are looking more for that practical and that emotional support when originally the charity was established, probably more for that financial side. So it's really interesting seeing the operations behind what the industry sees as RSABI, and it's such a valued charity within the sector, and they do some amazing work. So it's been really great to be involved with them.
Yeah, great organisation. Sure, you'd be a great person to be involved. So no, it's a good pairing that I'd like to think. Just before we sort of really delve into the Monitor Farm program, it's probably worthwhile talking about, is this a QMS thing? Is QMS and Monitor Farm Scotland related? Just so we can sort of understand how that works.
So the Monitor Farm Scotland is a fully funded project by Scottish Government Knowledge Transfer and Innovation Fund. So QMS and partnered with AHDB for the arable side in Scotland, the cereals and oilseed side in Scotland. They partnered up and wrote a proposal, put that into the Knowledge Transfer Innovation Fund within ScotGov, and were awarded a multi-year grant of just under 2 million to run the full operations of the programme. So it's a QMS and AHDB partnered project, fully funded by Scottish Government. But the key thing to the Monitor Farm programme is that it's farmer-led and it's farmer-driven. So it's very much about what farmers on the ground are looking for, and that's what we're looking to deliver. It's not a kind of some other groups might be, led by the consultant, or we choose a theme and we go out to find farmers that want that theme. It's very much chosen by the farmers, and then we just look to facilitate that for them.
Just for those listening, I'm sure we'll pop this in the description, but if you do want to look it up, the old-fashioned www.monitorfarms, and that's with an S on the end, .co.uk/about-us/, so go check that out if you want to look. You sort of gave a wee bit of brief of what it is there, Beth. What's the sort of timeline on the Monitor Farm programme? How long is this happening over?
Very first monitor farmers were in the Borders. It was the Livesey family back in 2003. So the concept actually came from New Zealand, and it was brought back over here to Scotland, and the Liveseys were the very first monitor farmers at that time. And at that point, it was still farmer-led, farmer-driven, but we went out to recruit monitor farms in specific areas, and you would apply for them as individual funding grants for a 3-year project. So that's how they first established back in 2003. And it's, the program's really evolved over time, but it by no means has been it's an evolution, not a revolution. We still want to keep that core concept of farmer-led and farmer-driven, and you'll hear me say that and say that again, but I think it's just absolutely so important to what we are doing. So we've had several cycles of monitor farmers that have been through the programme now, and then we've had a bit of a restructure of writing the programme. So for this current cycle, so in 2022, we changed the structure. And what we did was bring the delivery team in-house. So there's myself as the programme manager, and I've got a team of 3 facilitators, and they are regionally based. So we've had each 3 facilitators have got 3 farms each as well. So that's been the biggest change, as we brought that facilitation in-house. But it still allows us to bring the experts, the advisors, the consultants, or other farmers into the project there where, the different groups or regions see fit. So it allows us still to bring that outside opinion in. And we are by no means a team of experts. We are there to facilitate the needs of the programme.
We'll all be meeting a lot of these people over the coming weeks of the podcast, which will be good fun. And I think, not to blow my own trumpet, but if I can do it, let's have a discussion with farmers. So look forward to it quite a lot. One thing that I find quite interesting is, maybe this is just me, I'm quite certain it won't be, when I hear something like Monitor Farm, it can be quite easy to focus solely on technical farming practice. This is looking economic, environmental. How in depth, what is being covered in the Monitor Farm programme?
Yeah, so you've got 2 of our pillars there. We've kind of based ourselves off 3 pillars, and that's economic, environmental, and social sustainability. So you mentioned talking with farmers. The people are the core of the programme, and we don't have an industry if we don't have the people. So that social sustainability is hugely important as well. So in year 1, just going right back to the start again, we got awarded the funding in April 2022. We then went out to recruit staff and farmers at the same time. So I had a busy September of interviewing potential monitor farms, but also interviewing potential team members as well. So we had over 25 applicants for the programme. So that was one big change as well, was that we didn't go out to recruit in areas. We were open to the whole of Scotland, and beef, sheep, arable enterprises, just because that's where the remit of QMS and HDB sits. That's why there's those enterprises, although there is some others on the farms as well. So we went out and we selected 9 farms, and they were based off of being open to change and relatable to their area. And then, a kind of geographical spread across the country. We didn't want 3 in the same area just because they'd be competing with themselves, essentially. So we got 9 monitor farms, 3 team members, and we've got Peter Beattie up in the north, Christine Cuthbertson is over in the west, and Maura Wilson's covers the south. So that's our regional split. And then we launched the 9 farms at AgriScot in 2022. So, that's 2 years on now, and since we launched them. And that first year, we really focused on gathering data and that baselining piece. So each farm did an integrated land management plan. And they are accessible to all farms. So you can look at the Farm Advisory Service website for more information on them, but there's funding available through that for any farming business to do an integrated land management plan. And what that is a deep dive into your farm business over, the previous 3-5 years. It looks at that economic side, productivity side, plans, vision, where you want to go next. And we also soil sampled all of the monitor farms as well. We know that, to get production above the ground, we need to have everything right below the ground as well. So went out and soil sampled on pH, pK, so potassium, and then we went on to look at LOI, loss of ignition. So we did that baselining soil sampling in that year 1, and that just gave us a picture of what we were starting with. And, right from the start, there was huge differences between our 9 monitor farms. They're all different families, family businesses, owner occupies, tenants, contract farming agreements, a real mix across the whole split. And that's what we wanted. We wanted that good balance, but they are, family run businesses, which is pretty typical what we have in Scotland. So that's where we started, and then we've really built from there of what their goals are as individuals and as businesses, and how we can, make some achievable steps to get there.
If I was to ask 2 years of 3 in, is there any highlights that stand out to you?
One thing, it's 2 years of 4, so we added an extra year onto this project as well. So we're running to 2026, which again is another, we extended the programme because we felt 3 years wasn't long enough to really see the changes. We're just starting to really just now, we're just starting to get into the swing. I think the first year, we asked a lot from the farmers. We spent a lot of time sitting around the kitchen table, pulling out figures and trying to, work out different performance metrics. And I had a team from SAC that delivered those ILMPs, and they, worked really well alongside our facilitators to get that information from the farmers. But yeah, it was a big effort from everyone to pull that together. And then year 2, they've got past that initial data collection, and we're into the meetings by then, and we've established management groups around each of the monitor farms. Each of the 9 farms has 10-12 other individuals and farming businesses that are on a management group surrounding them. So that's people that are invested in helping another business, but also they want to get some return from that as well for their own business. So they're looking for new ideas and new practices, and they're really open about, their own challenges and where they're looking to make improvements. So we've established those management groups, and there was a bit of bonding time needed there so that everyone could build up that trust and had to be able to have that open discussion. And then we had the wider community. So we have those bigger open meetings twice a year so that those others in that area can get along and see what's been going on as well. So that's what we've been doing really for that 2 years. And now where we're up to is we've got a bunch of really, really good management groups that are invested in the programme. They're really open to discussion. They're starting to really thrash different ideas around there. And that's because they built up that level of trust, and it's taken that bit of vulnerability from them all to get there. So they're really, pushing on now.
Those management groups, how are they chosen? Is that by the monitor farmer? Is that by the monitor farm program, or is it just if people are coming forward, we want them to be involved?
So we had the first meetings in the winter 2022-23, and we just said, we're opening these groups up. If you're interested at all, come and let us know. And or they ticked a box in a form and said, yes, I'd really like to know more about that management group. Some of the monitor farmers would have said to, a few of their neighbours or people that they respected as well to say, would you be willing to join this? We've also got, there's some maybe a local consultant or a local agronomist as well in some of these groups too, and they really add value from a trade side. So there's different perspectives added in there, but largely, these people just volunteered because they wanted to get involved in that discussion group type and see where that business can progress over this like 4-year project.
I take it the plan now is all of these programs are going to be 4 years if this continues. Is that right?
The last meetings will be in 2026 and it fully finishes by March 2027. We've got to have that all wrapped up by then. So we're already thinking about what does the next project look like. We'll take some learnings from this one and we'll write another program, and hopefully we would get a successful bid again for that next cycle. And yeah, definitely we need 4 years to really and they need that first year just to do that data piece before you start asking questions from the outside as well. If you start to know your own figures first, it stands you in a good stead.
We maybe sort of jumped onto the sort of first 2 years of four. Any highlights jump out to you so far?
Yeah, we've had some really great meetings. We had a fantastic one this summer up at the Deeside Monitor Farm, and that was on finishing bull beef from forage. So we'll get to know all the monitor farmers as they come through, and I'm not going to give away all the information just now, but yeah, so Duncan and Claire Morrison hosted a meeting up there, and it was hugely well attended. I think we had about 90 attendees there, which is really great, and it was something different. Not many people are, a lot of people are moving out of finishing bulls for a start. The market was kind of limited for a while, so that put people off. But there's even less people that are finishing bulls off of grass or forage, that forage-based diet. Duncan thought, oh well, we need to let's see if it can work. And that's the great thing about these monitor farmers is they're open to different ideas and they've got these thoughts in their head and they want to see if it works, but they're not scared of failure. They know there's always going to be a risk, and you have to think about those risks before you jump into everything. But we did some financial analysis with Kirsten Williams at SEC, and we did a lot of grass analysis for that meeting, and it just really came together to bring that all the different aspects of he had his rotational grazing at that point, and the different swards were looking really well, and he'd had his grass analysis, so we looked at that and the diet, and we're still to do that second piece of the financial, the full sum up, because those bulls, we saw those bulls at grass and it looked to be working at that point, but now they've been processed and we can actually look at how did they grade out and follow that on from there. But that was just a really nice meeting that it just really highlighted the monitor farm ethos of being open to new ideas, and it was a different one, so that's why it was so great to see how well it was attended by the local community as well, who were really willing to support Duncan on some, another different idea that he's had, and give him some challenge as well, to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So it was really great, the engagement there. So that's been one highlight. We've also done your smaller type meetings with the management groups, and we've run some nutrition workshops with Lorna Shaw, and they've been really great just to see the management groups really bonding together and them getting a clear return for their time being there. They worked out their own forage budgets while they were there. It was really practical. So they've come away with that skill, which has been another real success.
Excellent. And I think you said you didn't want to give too much away. I would agree, but for those listening, the next episode will be with Claire and Duncan Morrison from Deeside there, so that'll be fun to sort of get into one of the monitor farmers themselves. On, looking at highlights so far, sort of looking back, looking forward, how should the next 2 years play out, Beth, for those involved?
So now that we've done, we've got are strategic. They know where they're going. They've got that direction. It's really a case of getting on with a lot of these changes. But there's a lot of still the business skills, personal development side that we still want to focus on. So this winter we've got a run of succession focus meetings, and succession comes to everyone in every business. You know, if you're running a business, you need to be thinking about who's going to take this on next, or maybe it's, you know, a get out clause. So we're running a series of succession meetings, and we'll be looking a lot wider than what those meetings. Those meetings are going to focus on the financial planning, the legal planning, the taxation planning, all those sorts of things. And they're going to be in a play style, so it's a bit different. It's going to be very interactive and hopefully take down some of those barriers that folk do have about just sitting down and having these conversations. But there's also the more like strategic things that you need to think about. I'll use my own family as an example. I'm your typical candidate for the Monitor Farm program because I really want to learn new things and take them into my home to my own business, which is great when I'm employed to get out to all these meetings and see it for myself. But it's a huge benefit to me to get out and see how other folk are doing it and be able to take messages back home. So, you know, my grandpa's I've got a lot of respect for him and what he's done with our farm, and him and my granny built that up over the last 60 years to what we've got now. So they've got so much knowledge as well inside their heads that hopefully we can transfer on to. So it's not just the transferring of assets during succession. There's a lot of transfer of knowledge. And then there's that huge like confidence piece of the next generation coming into making, you know, being the decision maker in the business. So what we've seen being quite successful is having like a coach style in there as well, and just being able to have good communication. I think that goes a long way. And, you know, when you're working with family as well, there's always going to be that a different dynamic there. It's not like when you go into your job, you know how you're meant to behave, but there's emotions there. And I think it's important for us to look at that kind of the family style and wider than just the finances and the legalities, which of course are so important. And one thing that we've really pushed since the start is make sure that you've got a power of attorney written, because so many did not have that at the start of the program. So that's been a quick win, which has been good that they've put that into place. So yeah, we're focusing on succession this winter. And then there'll be more of that, the business skills side. We talk a lot about the challenge of labour in the industry, particularly for suckler cow producers. And we see that as, well, a lot of the feedback we get is that is why numbers are reducing. So I think we need to look at skills in a business and, you know, how you recruit and retain staff. So we've been working with SAOS and some skills needs analysis, and they run some really great workshops for their kind of larger co-ops. So I think we've got some learnings that we can maybe take there into smaller family businesses, which maybe only need 1 or 2 labour units extra on top of that the family. But yeah, it's a real challenge when you can't get folk to come out and work. And we've also got a huge job to do in that, encouraging the next generation into the sector, whether that's within your own family, whether that's new entrants, or keeping people within the industry. I think it is really important, and it's been really nice to see the management groups have said that they would like to do that as a group, but if they can try and boost it more, if they can do more like public facing activity through the program. We've got this amazing platform that we have this big group voice of, you know, we've got direct contact to 120 farmers via WhatsApp. So the power of that is huge. And if we can utilise the programme to have that platform and, you know, air some of these challenges and see the opportunities with it.
I think the succession side's so important. I mean, I've always seen, not always, in the last few years, I've almost seen succession sort of following a pattern of mental health. You know, it just was not discussed at all. And then it became okay to talk about. And I think succession is one of those ones that in some households, they know what the kids are doing, what the grandkids are doing. In some households, they're 5 years away from potentially losing a tenancy that can't be kept on to the next generation, and they have no idea what they're going to do. And I find that petrifying. So no, I think having those discussions and sort of easing those discussions to happen at the dinner table is so valuable, so valuable. Yeah, and getting the right employment into the sector as well. I worked in education, and we saw the challenges. We heard from a lot of people like it. We just can't find the right staff. We can't find staff if this sector is to continue. Which, if we want to eat, it has to. We need to really get sort of on that. So no, it's all very valuable stuff. Very valuable. I think even having just listened to the last half hour, Beth, someone who is farming, who's nearby, for example, can hear the value in turning up to a monitor farm meeting. What value is there in being one of the monitor farms?
Monitor farms don't get any financial, incent or reimbursement or anything like that. What they do get is a lot of time put into their business. I think the number one thing is it's really, I don't want to say forcing, but I suppose it is. They have volunteered into this process, but it's forcing them to focus on enterprise by enterprise. And what we are supplying is those that can help them do that along the way. We've worked with various consultants. We're utilising other farmers as mentors as well. I think we don't always need a consultant, but actually the knowledge that we've got, whether that's just over the fence with your neighbours, already tried something out, that is huge as well. So they're really getting a lot of time in kind. But we also have a pot of money, which is we call our innovation fund. So we've got an allocation of the budget for each farm. So there's 15,000 allocated per farm just to look at innovation work. And when I say innovation, I don't mean fancy new shiny kit onto these farms. Actually, what we've done with that money for some farms is we've looked at forage, like a real in-depth look at forage rationing and what's working and what's not. We've looked at rotational grazing and water as a barrier to rotational grazing. We had a lambing project looking at lamb losses and neonatal survivability on one farm, and that was, a collaboration with the vets and Glasgow Vet School, and a really successful project there for the farm. But we have just secured an application to try virtual fencing on 4 of our farms. So we're going to be this winter deploying collars onto 4 farms. So we've got 25 collars per farm. So it's a small project on each farm. But again, that's really looking at the people side of trying to utilize this equipment. And can it save any labour? What are the challenges actually in setting these systems up and making the most of them? Because that's been one of the pieces of technology that's really come into the play in the last couple of years, particularly on RSPB estates where they've had funding for capital items, and virtual fences and using these collars has been game changing to get cattle out onto hill ground that's never been grazed or managed properly for years. But what we hear is they're really, really expensive. There's a huge capital expenditure. Then there's a subscription cost to keep them going as well. So we want to look at that in a smaller scale and put some more figures behind it. But really our focus is the labour and the people side of that again, and what it takes to train people and the cows onto it as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not a sort of constant payment, but there's so much incentive to be involved there. Absolutely. Fantastic. For those of you listening, as I've said, we're looking to bring in people from all sides of the Monitor Farm programme, whether that's staff, farmers themselves, and cover all sides of what it involves. So we will be continuing to do this. This is not just the first of one. This is the first of a few episodes. And as I said at the start, there's no real better place to start than the manager of it, the person in charge. And I'm sure she'll be modest and say that's not true, but it is true. So I hope you've enjoyed the first episode. We will have more guests on as we go. If you do want to check things out that we're doing with the Monitor Farm programme, it is www.monitorfarms, and that has an S on the end, monitorfarms.co.uk/about us.
So we've got lots of meetings upcoming ahead of Christmas time. So check out our events page on the Monitor Farm website that Wallace has given the link to. Next upcoming is a meeting on the 20th of November, and that's on East Lothian, looking at the financial future of arable farming. And then in the 21st, we've got Banff and Buchan, which is shaping up the roles of body condition scoring, genomics and nutrition. The 28th of November, we're in Strathspey for a vet special on pneumonia. And the final one before Christmas is the 5th of December in Roxburgh. Regenerative agriculture, hope or hype. We've really found that regenerative agriculture has been quite polarizing when we're in discussions, and not necessarily in the principles, but just in the discussions that we've been having on the monitor farms. So we're having a panel session looking at different aspects of that in the hope that we can draw some conclusions that are going to benefit everyone in agriculture, in terms of looking at your productivity, your profitability, and the environment there. And as we said, our three pillars are economic, environmental, but the social is huge for us. And we know people value their time hugely. So if you can get along-term meetings, we'd really love to see you there.
Excellent. That has been episode 1 of Field Talk, a Monitor Farm Scotland podcast, and we look forward to showcasing the rest of the programme in the future episodes.
Thanks for tuning in to the Monitor Farm Scotland podcast. Don't forget to click subscribe wherever you get your podcast from for more episodes as we continue to dive into the stories from our monitor farms. If you want to stay updated with our latest news and events, please visit the Monitor Farm Scotland website and follow us on social media for more updates and keep in the know about what our farms are getting up to. Monitor Farm Scotland is funded by Scottish Government and managed by Quality Meat Scotland and AHDB.